Hello, my friends. Happy New Year, and welcome to Mid-Month Make-Its with Wendy. And today, together, we're going to be doing a button bowl, which is really just a bowl made out of buttons that we made ourselves. Here is my first button bowl that I made. And with this button bowl, I raided my closet, and I do have a big jar of vintage buttons, and it came out okay, but I do have to say that because vintage buttons are all different thicknesses, that it could have been better. So I did go to Michael's and I bought buttons, and here's what I bought. I made my buttons peacock colors because if this is a good bowl when it turns out, it's going to go in my living room, which is teal with peacocks. The buttons that we need are all different sizes. Here, let me show you all different sizes. So the buttons are all different sizes. Let me try and show you. How's that? Okay, plus a big one for the bottom. I'm gonna try that. So different sizes, or even bigger. So these sizes are good for our button bowl. Okay, and one of the first things that we're going to do is to blow up our balloon, and we're going to duct tape it to our duct tape stand. Balloon is blown up, and I taped it to the stand so that we can work on it. And what we're going to do first is a layer of glue, and this is just Elmer's glue. It's going to dry clear, and make sure that whatever tape that whatever glue you're using, that you do have it, that it's going to dry clear. And go down as far as you think that you want your buttons to go. No more than half the balloon for sure. And you don't have to use a round balloon. You could also use one of the oblong balloons, and then you would probably have a bowl the size of like a cracker carrier. And so I'm just spreading the glue around. It's just a thin layer, getting every part of the top of the balloon. And we're going to put that aside to let it dry as soon as we have it all spread out. So my balloon is no longer sticky to the touch with the glue. Our next step is going to be to put the Mod Podge on. And by the way, if you want to speed up the drying of your balloons, you can use a hair dryer, but I do have to warn you against using a very hot setting because the balloon could pop, so use the cooler setting of your hair dryer. So I'm going to dip my brush into the Mod Podge. I'm putting a thin layer just along the top. I'm pushing it down. And I'm going to put my first row of buttons around here. So again, thin coat of Mod Podge. And let's see. About the buttons. I thought I could put one of the big ones so that this could be the bottom. So that when it sits, it'll sit on the bottom of the big button. Okay. So after that, just take the buttons You can make your own design, big buttons first, small buttons, little buttons. But I'm just going to start going around. And of course it moved already. Okay. And I'm just going to put the buttons around. Try and make the buttons touch each other. Okay. Whatever design or colors. Right. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to go around and around and around until we get till about down here, and then we'll come back for the next step. Okay, so I just wanted to show you progress so far. If you put on too much of the Mod Podge, they're going to start to slide. So it's going to be a constant battle of getting them pushed up and racing against time that the Mod Podge is drying. But just try not to put too much of the Mod Podge on, and then they'll be okay. They won't slide as much. So you can see my line. I have about an inch more to go all the way around. After all of these are on and the Mod Podge dries, which takes about a half an hour, or again, if you wanted to blow dry it, it'll be quicker. But after we get down to here, then we're going to put a thick layer of Mod Podge on, and probably a second layer of Mod Podge, and that'll hold them all into place. So I'm just going to continue to go around and around, and I'll show you progress later. What I need to tell you is that I took away the big giant button and filled it in with the other buttons. I wasn't pleased with the look of it, and I'm sure that this will still sit flat even without a big giant button. You could play around with that if you have different size buttons, and I just think that that big one just kind of ruined everything. So now I am going to put this aside and let it dry completely. It's dry to the touch here, but I would like that Mod Podge to dry underneath it so that it certainly adheres the inside of the bowl together. So it's been about a half an hour, and I'm feeling this, and I do believe that the inner layer of Mod Podge is dry. So the next thing that we need to do is to put a generous but not super thick coating of Mod Podge all over these buttons in every nook and cranny. It doesn't have to be thick yet, because we'd like for this first layer to dry at a good pace. So we just need to do I'll show you, just a generous to fill in every nook and cranny. I'm using a brush where I could pounce it in, but you could certainly brush it and pounce at the same time. But I want the Mod Podge to even go into all the button holes, but definitely into every crack that is between the buttons. You try to get them to touch each other the best you can, but what we're going to do next is just pounce the Mod Podge into every crack and crevice that we see. So you're going to do that for the whole entire, and go a little bit beyond the buttons, and then that is going to dry, and we'll do a second coat. So you're Mod Podged. This is still the first coat. Just want to let you know. Keep on pouncing. Look at what you did. If you still see the color of your balloon, which by the way, try not to use a white balloon. If you still see any color in there, you pounce away, get the Mod Podge in there. I can see my buttonholes here. I am going to pounce any buttonholes, any cracks, fill it in with the Mod Podge. Okay, so this Mod Podge is going to dry, and it's going to take a while, but it's going to dry clear. And then when it does start to look clear to you, then you can start with the second coat. What I'm going to do next is to put a little bit of a thicker coat of Mod Podge over this. And I'm going to put it aside, and then when the Mod Podge is completely dissolved and dry, that's when we're going to pop the balloon. So this is what it looks like with its second coat of Mod Podge. If I missed any cracks or nooks and crannies before, I certainly have them all filled in now. It's time to put this aside and let it dry, and dry completely. It should dry clear again, and we'll check on it again later. We are all dry. It's all dry to the touch on the outside. I removed it from its stand, and we're ready to pop it and see what happens. So I have my pin, and let's see. Okay. I popped it. How come it's not going down? Here we go. And taking it out. Hey. Okay. Ta-da! Here is the bowl. And I think it looks pretty good. Now, of course, the inside is still very wet, and that will dry overnight, I'm sure. And the scissors we have, because you're going to want to trim the bowl. I trimmed it and shaped it, and I'm going to let it dry overnight, and then I have myself a completed button bowl. I think that this was very calming for me to put all these buttons on a balloon, and I hope that it is something that will relax you too. And I hope that you have fun with this. And I thank you so much for watching my mid-month Make It's with Wendy. And I invite you to our next Make It, which will be on February 17th. So everybody please stay well, be safe,